Squad up, haters down. If you ain't about that life, don't come around. Got the crowd, gone wild. Tell me what you know about that MIM style.
Yo, y'all know what time it is. Y'all know what time it is, man. It's the Memphis Jelks Show. How is everybody doing out there tonight, man? Don't everybody speak at once. Nah, for real though. Tonight, man, we bringing y'all another dope show. You know what I'm saying? We got another dope guest. This guest comes all the way from Los Angeles, California. But before we get into that, you know what I'm saying, I want everybody to hit that like button and hit that share button. You know what I'm saying, leave some comments and stuff, you know, interact with the page, man, so that we'll get more people in the room. The more the merrier. The more the merrier. And y'all see that the phone number is where it always is, in the bottom corner, 901-410-0123. That's for any of y'all who want to call in, man, because we love hearing from y'all. And this is a show for the people, by the people, and for the people. So we love interacting with y'all, you know what I'm saying, giving y'all a chance to put us up on game. And at the same time, you know what I'm saying, we putting y'all up on game, you know? Nobody knows everything. Nobody knows everything. Tonight, man, so far, you know, on the side note, you know what I'm saying, on the side note part of the show, I just want to get into like how God works, man, because God be working, man, and his ways are so much more mysterious than what we would want to imagine, man. So this one time I worked for this company, right? It's been years ago. And the company ended up letting me go. And at that time, I thought that was the worst thing that could ever happen in my life. But then a few years went by, and after going through a couple of other jobs, I ended up landing my dream job. The moral of the story is that God allowed me to go through a storm, and what I thought was my worst day was probably the best day that I ever had. You know what I'm saying? And we don't see it at the time. So I know some of y'all out there got some stories that y'all can share with us, and we would love to hear them. Call in and tell us about a time to where you thought something was happening to you that was really, really bad, but God ended up showing you later on that was really, really good. Man. Please do. We want to hear from you. 901-410-0123. You know what I'm saying? But in the meantime, let me know this. Are you ready? We have Dr. Lewis in the building.
Hello.
Yo.
He in the building.
Yes. Yes. We happy that you are in the building and that you're going to be in the building for every third Wednesday of each month. We appreciate you.
For sure.
For wellness Wednesdays. Can you kind of give them a little description on like what Wellness Wednesdays is and what they can expect?
Well, so of course, you know, I work in the mental health field, and every third Wednesday, we're going to be talking about how you can become better versions of yourselves through good mental health.
We need that. The world needs that because it's crazy. Like, I mean, I went to the store the other day, got like a basket full of stuff, and it was like $150.
I can see how that might affect your mental health.
Yes, and I was like, man, we might need to go back to them college noodles days. Ramen.
I don't know about
I don't know. Now the ramen, it used to be pretty tasty, depending on what all you put in there. I know somebody who used to put smoked sausage in there.
that sodium intake is extremely high, so you also got to watch that too.
Oh wow, and that's really that's something else. That's something else we need to
Mhm.
talk about. That's gonna be for another day though. On Wellness Wednesdays, we need to talk about like the stuff that's in this food, the
I
salt,
know.
the sugar.
Yep.
Just yeah, the stuff that's like that we need to be paying attention to. We got to start reading the back of those cartons in the back of those packages and seeing like what's in this stuff that we're eating.
Yeah. The sad part about it is that the good stuff is so expensive and the bad stuff, you can afford those things. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just, yeah, it's backwards. It's
It
backwards.
is. It's
Yeah.
super backwards. It's super backwards. And salute to all the doctors out there. You know what I'm saying, including Dr. Lewis,
Hey, hey,
Be-
hey.
because tonight we bring to you one of the greatest doctors who done ever came out of the M Town. He was so good that they had to call him in LA and say, man, can you come to LA? I'm talking about the one, the only
Drums, please.
author, Robert L. Jamison, PhD in the building.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for having me on your show tonight. I've been really looking forward to it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Jamison, man. It's just been so much, man, that we've been wanting to talk to you about, but I know you've been busy, but we appreciate you taking out the time to finally join us.
Absolutely. I stay busy, working in working in urgent care. You always stay busy because, you don't have a lot of patient by appointments. You got a lot of walk-in patients. So, that pretty much limited your schedule. So you can't really determine how your day is going to be. So luckily for me, we have a group of nurses that basically does a lot of our fill-ins for us until we get there to the clinic and get available to see patients. Our nurse practitioners, they work in varieties of studies and professional fields of healthcare. So, we have a dependable team of practitioners and physicians to basically carry out caseload. But like you said, working in urgent care, man, you just can never tell what your schedule is going to be like.
That's a blessing. That's a blessing. And another reason I wanted to have you on too is to highlight black doctors, man. You know what I'm saying? Kids, if y'all out there watching, this is what cool is. We got 2 black doctors on the show.
That is amazing. Just to be able to meet Dr. Lewis is definitely an honor and a privilege because we all from Memphis. And to be able to collaborate together on one accord, that is some amazing stuff. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
and not many of us get an opportunity to join people like yourself that has a wide range of audience for us to basically educate in our field of study.
I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was very ecstatic when he said that we were going to be talking to another doctor tonight and who's also an author. We have so much in common. So I was really excited about that.
You know, to be honest with you, all of my education started from the roots of where I come from, Memphis. I'm not sure if you know my background in healthcare, but I worked at Baptist as a physician assistant in surgery before I even became a doctor. I did 20 years. I gave Baptist, Methodist, and St. Francis surgery department 20 years of my entire career. And when I got tired of surgery. You know, healthcare is a continuing education situation. So that means, you know, as long as you're in the field, there's different opportunities for you to visit and to not stay in one position. Because when I started in PACU as a anesthesia technician. And from that point forward, Baptist Hospital had this back in the 80s when I first started this tuition reimbursement program where you can go to school as long as you want to because, of course, it's the University of Tennessee Medical Study Program for medical doctors and, you know, people in the industry. So when I transferred from the PACU, I went over to surgery as a certified first assistant because I was able to take their course as a anesthesia technician working in PACU. And so when I transitioned and went over to surgery in 1989, I started in 84, but jumped to surgery in 89. It was an amazing journey just to be able to step into a zone where you feel that you can expand your horizon into your field of study. And at that time, it wasn't a study because I was a surgery assistant. But to be able to accomplish so many endeavors over 2 decades, and I did go in with the vision to not just be in one profession. I wanted to become this physician that I am now, but to give a facility, an organization 20 years of your career, and you have to give back to the people who are responsible for you to be in my shoes and where I am today. And those are some of the surgeons and some of the nurses and medical staff that I worked with for those 20 something years. And I actually left Baptist in 2007 when I obtained my PhD. Uh, but I also had a practice up and going prior to that because I was a physician assistant, and we had a PICC line clinic that we established in 2005. And from 2005 up until 2007, when I had my master's and I was going on to that PhD journey, we had a PICC line clinic called Intravenous Nursing, which was over on Poplar Avenue. And I forgot the address, but it was right down the street from East High School. But we worked in that practice for 2 years, and we were featured in the Memphis Business Journal as one of the fastest PICC line clinic in the state of Tennessee that was governed by surgery staff, ICU, and emergency room, and telemetry nurses and physician assistant. I was on physician assistant at that time, but I had 4 nurses that was working a part of the team. And so when we opened up the doors of that in 2005, our biggest backbone was the surgeon that we work with in surgery. So we was one of the fastest growing intravenous nurses practice in the state of Tennessee. And the money that we invested into the opportunity was over $500,000. And we actually made that back in like 9 months. And that journey was something that inspired me, man. It inspired me to work and grind a little bit more harder. And the doctors that I was working with at that time, they kept pushing me because they saw the future in me that a lot of people that I grew up with didn't even think I was capable or even had the ability to continue growing in this industry. Now I'm looking at 38 years from now, from that point forward, 38 years in healthcare.
Wow. That's a journey right there. That's an
But,
amazing journey.
you know,
Absolutely.
and I'm sure Dr. Lewis can pretty much attest to this too, because when you obtain your doctorate degrees and you do your when you start your field of study, in other words, when you open up your doors and when you started utilizing that title to help people, and we're the kind of people, because she's in the wellness industry, she pretty much like me. She went around the journey of the pharmaceutical aspect of people utilizing these drugs and all the opioids, but want to teach them more about healthy eating and lifestyle changes to basically not only benefit their lifestyle, but also put them on a better, productive way of healing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, poor appetite and poor eating is another habit that's associated with your mental health. Believe it or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you go a
So
little
it takes
bit
people
deeper?
like us
Go
to
ahead.
educate them.
Can you go a little bit deeper into that?
Well, cause here's the thing. You know, I work in a busy practice, right? And we don't have like a typical program. Our program is like a top of the line. It's not like you're driving a freaking Mercedes Benz, like you're driving a Porsche. Something on a different scale. And I'm gonna tell you why. Let me explain to you why. It's because when everybody coming to the clinic on our intake information, which is associated to our EMR, we have a mental health program that's geared toward depression and anxiety. One is called a PHQ-9 for depression levels. And the other one is called a GAD-7, GAD-7 for anxiety disorder. Okay. So that both components give us a roadmap for each individual patient to have what they call tailored care to their own diagnosis and some of the symptoms that they've been going through that was coming from the diagnostic that we ran on the PHQ-9. There's only 9 questions on the PHQ-9 and 7 questions on the GAD-7. But both components, that's our roadmap to lead this patient to either therapy, a psychologist, or direct through psychiatry based on the scoring of each component of the mental health status. And I mean, I'm talking about from trauma, bipolar disorder, anxiety, depression, PTSD, as well as pain management. So those are some components that's encrypted into our EMR. That's on the front and center of our intake for every patient. So if a patient comes in, we're not injecting medication to them. We leave it up to the psychiatrist. If a patient needs therapy, we have a roadmap. We have therapists basically to go off that finding, which is the finding, which is the score, and then a summary is attached to that assessment. And the therapist will know exactly how to tailor her treatment for this patient.
Wow. So you mentioned like your eating habits could have something to do with your
obese,
mental wellness.
Obese, baby. It calls you that. I mean, then not only that, you're building radicals. And a lot of people don't understand the terminology of radical because that's inside your intestines, right? So when you overload your food, your body with a lot of food, of course, you're gaining more radicals, which is a part of your colon, your intestine, your esophagus. And so when you start getting all this inflamed intestine inside your belly, and your belly starts getting bloated, you know, and it's causing you to gain a lot of weight. But then when you started gaining that weight, then you started getting discouraged. Your anxiety kicks in, and then you get depressed once you get over a certain amount of pounds, you know, and you got to try to figure out a diet situation on how you're going to offset that weight. So of course, anxiety and depression is part of your mental health.
Interesting. That's interesting.
I like to say mind, body, soul, spirit. They all affect one another. If one is not correctly, then the other one won't function.
No, that's true.
Parts.
And so that's why it takes people like Dr. Lewis and I to explain to our patients. And it's easier for us because we have that roadmap. You know what I mean? If somebody come in, you know, obese, and they need to lose 30 or 40 pounds, and they got to go to the operating room and have this lap band. Most physicians write orders for the patient to go and see a dietitian, number 1, and some therapy, number 2, to basically help with their control and their depression, of their mental health status. But the dietary is going to help with the eating stability, you know. And so, but those are 2 components that most general surgeon that works in the lap band industry, the laparoscopy lap band for each patient, to go through those 2 components before they can even get approved for the insurance to bill for that procedure. And I learned that when I was working at Baptist.
Wow.
Yep.
And that was way before I tapped into behavioral health, because I worked with one of the top-notch lap band physicians when he was a freaking medical student in college. And when he became a doctor, when he was going through his internship and fellowship in surgery, I had been a physician assistant for about 10 years at that time. And so when he opened the doors of his practice, his bariatric practice, I was one of the first physician assistant that worked on the 3 to 11 shift that basically helped him jumpstart his practice as a PA and doing bariatric surgery. So I didn't just work one field of the Department of Surgery. I worked in vascular surgery. I worked with one of the top leading heart doctors and lung transplant doctor, Dr. Rodney Wolf and Ed Garrett. And that was on our CV team. A lot of the doctors are dead now because we're talking like about 30 years ago, in other words. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to remember these physicians that's responsible for you being on this scale of IQ level that you are in the industry. When I moved to California, I was reluctant to go to work at any hospital or work for any physician because I had already jump-started my entrepreneurship while I was in Memphis. So when I moved to California in 2010, I was still working in Memphis, but I utilized my colleagues that I would work with in surgery and the PICC line clinic to basically jumpstart my practice in Beverly Hills. I moved to Beverly Hills first because that's where the money was at.
Mm-hmm.
But then I opened up alternative healthcare in Beverly Hills, and I was flying back and forth to Memphis at that time. So when my mom passed in 2012, December 14th, 2012, I flew out here and made California my home for a lifetime.
So if a youngster is watching and then they want to know, like, how did you make it from Memphis and to even first of all making it in, you made it in Memphis from Memphis.
Yeah.
What kind of student did you have to be? Like, can you take us back to kind of high school
I had
or
the
a
same
level
question.
of like what kind of
Same
student were
question.
you?
It's crazy. I can tell you, and this is going to shock you like it shocked me. I come from the projects, right? And, of course, coming from the projects, hey, you're either going to be caught up in drugs, gangs. Back then, we called them pimp.
Shout out to the pimps. I'm just playing.
The OGs.
The
Back then was the OGs. Right? So listen, when I was going to Bellevue Junior High School, I was carrying a briefcase to school when most kids were taking backpack and book satchels. You remember that, right? Well, I don't know if you were back then. I was taking a briefcase to school. But my English teacher and my 8th grade English teacher, when she saw me, she said, "You're going to be something one day because you're the only guy I know that carrying a briefcase and everybody carrying their book satchels. And you always here prompt. You're on time and you're keeping your grades up. You're going to be somebody someday." Keep in mind, I come from the projects. From Bellevue Junior High, I was an A and B honor roll student from the 7th through the 9th, because we only had to go for 2 years, and then from the 10th to the 12th. But when I got to Tech High School, I kept that very same model because I wanted to be someone. And I took printing over at Tech High School. That's a trade. So I left Bellevue carrying a briefcase. I went to Tech High School, got a trade in printing. But I also knew how to tear up stuff. So we had a upholstery class at Tech High School. So I did Tech High did the printing one year, and I did the upholstery the next year. So in my junior year, my sophomore year at Tech, I got into printing. But before I graduated my junior year, I got into upholstery. And then, believe it or not, I started working at an upholstery shop at my senior year for part-time. And I learned how to do upholstery so quick. When I graduated, before I went to Shelby State Community College for my associate degree in business and administration, I started working at a upholstery shop, and I worked for this guy for a couple of years. And basically, I learned how to do upholstery, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I asked my boss, after working for him for about 4 or 5 years while I was still going to school, can I open up a upholstery shop? And so he said, "Who you going? I want to hire your staff to work for me," and he went for it. So I hired one of the ladies that did my refinishing for him. One of the upholstery guys that basically did upholstery on the assembly line. I was already good in sewing and doing the pillows, so I had that all together. So hey, within 3 years after that, I opened up my upholstery business called Jamison Associate. After I graduated and got my associate degree, I started working at Baptist Hospital, man. I put in an application not knowing I was going to get hired or anything at Baptist Hospital, went through patient escort, jumped in there for about 2 weeks, and then got transferred to PACU. And I was telling you a story about PACU, and that's recovery room. I say PACU. And I worked there as a recovery room technician and an anesthesia technician. And then I jumped from surgery. But then when I started working in the operating room, having my upholstery shop, the hospital was my clientele. How about that? Then,
Wow.
then I got
look at God working.
and when they was working on the casinos back down in Tunica, Mississippi, I had a big contract with Samtown Casino and Fitzgerald, the first two casinos that was open. And so I utilized that very same upholstery team to sew my draperies and my pillow cushion. We stuffed them together. We worked together as a team. Then I bought on a couple more other upholsterers from other organizations, other companies that wasn't competing with us, but actually networking with us. So everybody that I worked with at that time was like 15 to 20 years older than me. How about that? And then once I got to surgery at the hospital, my biggest clientele for the upholstery business was the nurses and the doctors. And that pretty much put me on a whole different road to success. And lo and behold, while I was at work at the hospital, I had my seamstress sewing up all the pillows and cushions and draperies. I had my upholstery guys doing doing 80% of my upholstery. I used my two best friends as my delivery guys. And we worked together for many, 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 many years in that industry. And so when I became a physician assistant in surgery, I kind of like let the upholstery go and focus more on the surgery aspect because I saw where I was progressing more, making more money. And my salary started quadrupling what I was making in upholstery. So it was time for me to shift gears because let me say this to you. I was so hungry when I started working in surgery. I worked 10 years straight doing 16 hours a day, Monday through Fridays, 10 years straight. And it's because I wanted to jump into something more bigger. And that was my PICC line clinic, right? So working in surgery, I was actually cutting like a doctor cutting. I was doing 90% of the work that the surgeon that I was working with. And anybody that works in surgery as a PA, they would tell you the very same thing that most doctors relied on the anesthesiologist, they circulate nurse, the physician assistant, or the scrub assistant, or someone like that in that capacity. And can't leave out the surgical technician because we all work together as a team. And to collaborate in that field for over 20 years, I was just blown away that I even got. Now I'm not talking about the years that I did before I got to surgery. I'm talking about the 20 years in surgery. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I mean like I'm still pinching myself to believe that I went through that entire process faithfully, solely depending on God. You know what I mean? Yep. And because when you come from the project, you got to have God in your life. You got to, because trust me, when I tell you that, bro, there are some successful people come from the same project that I grew up in, Lamar Terrace. Some are nurses, some are paramedics, some are business owners, some are even doctors, man, surgeons. That's what I'm talking about. So no one can ever say it's where you come from to utilize that as an excuse not to be successful. You got to have that drive. I mean, there's doctors that see me right to this day when I go back home to the hospital. They hug and embrace me because they saw the potential in me. Because I'm not going to brag about it, but I'm just going to tell you point blank, bro. In surgery, I was a bad man. I'm gonna tell you. I just got to tell you, bro. I mean, my skin closure was top of the line. My staples was anything that was related to surgery, and anybody that worked with me would tell you I can jump into any procedure, whether it's a craniotomy, which is a brain, whether it's a spinal fusion, which is a back surgery, cervical, which is your neck, belly, which is general, any appendectomy, any colon resection, and small bowel obstruction, any spleen, any appendectomy, any gallbladder, in the vaginal hysterectomy, C-section. I mean, I can go all day long with this, bro. And there's another guy, him and I, Delwan Calvin. He's a surgical technician, but he's a nurse now at Baptist. Been there for almost 40 years. And him and I, on our shift at 3 to 11, because see, this is what was going on with me. I was working PACU in the morning, which is the recovery room, and I was going to surgery in the afternoon at 2 to 11. And then I was going to different hospitals with my vascular surgery group, St. Francis Methodist, the Med, and a Baptist and Methodist. Yeah. So I was a traveling PA with my own vascular group. So I did that on certain days. I did general surgery on certain days. I did orthopedics on general and neurology on certain days. I did GYN on certain days, man. The
Wow.
journey was unbelievable. Unbelievable. So when people look at my resume, it's not like I had to trim it to one sheet, but actually with the whole 38 years, let alone the continuing education units, it's impeccable. And I'm still learning because every new technology and every drug, and we stay away from pharmaceutical. But I'm just, when I say let me change the word drug. Any supplement, any different modality that comes out related to integrated medicine, because like right now we do stem cells injection. We've been doing stem cells for like the last 10 years. Now we got the X39 stem cell patches that's been saturating the market for like the last 8 years. And these are all natural, modalities. I mean, stem cells is basically regenerated medicine. And then on top of that, for all of our behavioral tool that we do the brain mapping, we do the TMS. That's another therapy for substance abuse and for drugs. And then we do the WAVI brain scan for brain physiology. We do the PHQ-9. We do the GAD-7. We do hyperbaric. I mean, I have a degree in hyperbaric medicine too. So
Wow.
it's crazy, man. But and then when I write my stories or things like that, the new book alone, I got another book called Turning Point, and I did a breast cancer book as well. I don't promote the breast cancer book too much for the simple fact I wanted to change the book cover because when I did it about 4 years ago, I had me on the front page, but I wanted to change it and design it a different way. So I kind of like took it off. But this a long book. And right here, this is my bread and butter for behavior and mental health. And there are 20 chapters of this book.
How many chapters are there?
20.
That's amazing. And that's what brings us here too. That's what brings us here tonight. We're celebrating the book alone.
Well, and and this how I got it set up to really get it to the people that really need it. I offer this book for free here in California, because it's selling on Amazon too, but like in the practice. And when I'm out in the community doing outreach, anybody that's what I said, like homeless, people that don't have money to purchase the book, if they enroll into our primary care or our behavioral health program, they get the book for free. They got to be competent to read and understand what's written. And the beautiful part about the book, it's in lame terminology. Nothing really, if you can read third grade level, you can read this book. That's why I did it. Because mental health is so crucial in the world today. And there's a lot of people don't have access to help. And people are dying because they don't have access to help. They don't have that person to talk to. They don't have that person to call. They literally don't know how to get from one point to another and trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? And there's a protocol to get this help, but people got to know how to get it. You just got to go to the doctor and be open to your issues and your problems and let it start from there. You know what I mean? And if any physician that's in primary care or internal medicine or general medicine or someone like Dr. Lewis, you don't have to be a medical provider. It can be someone in the wellness industry that know the roadmap to get these people help. And that's what's important. And this is why I like going into the community, because I like to talk to people and I like to locate people that's having bad problems in their life and need help. And I want to be that leader to guide them to the appropriate individual or the appropriate practitioner of the source, in other words, the
Mm-hmm.
source, to handle these situations, to help with to address these issues. And this is why I say the turning unseen wounds of depression into wisdom, utilizing it as an empowerment guide from depression to transformation. Because if you can seek out for help and be led in the right direction, that's where your wisdom come in at. And it don't have to be with drug. It don't have to be associated with drug, but you gotta really want it. You really gotta want to help, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
people like me, I get depressed at times. I'm human, you know. I have bad days too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So what I've written in this book, I have to apply this to myself.
So I have to ask you, Dr. Jamison, is this book not about your own personal journey?
No, it's not about my own personal journey. It's about it's about some of the things that we have helped people with within the clinic. I don't want this book to be about me because I have a lot of other journals about me. I wanted this book to be for someone that's going through depression, someone that has anxiety, someone that has some bipolar situation that needed some help with that to help address the issue. And it's more of an empowerment. So the stories that I wrote is to empower the readers, not let it be about me, if that makes any sense. Now,
Mm.
the introductory part is about me because I can tell you why. I had to start it off like this here because when I was a kid, I grew up in a domestic violence home when my stepfather was a drug addict and he used to beat my mom and I when we was young. And it kind of like put me as a kid at 5 to 6 to 7, all the way up until about 10 years old, into a state of mind to where, hell, I didn't know whether I was going to be here tomorrow to wake up to see another day or not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah.
see your mom getting beat every other day or every weekend, you know, it's like when you put the key in the door, everybody on pins and needles, in other words. You're walking on eggshells. So I started the book off like that, explaining to my situation, my mental health. And then I utilized my experience and told my mom's story after my brother got killed, got hit by a city bus in Memphis, right? And combined those two stories together as the introductory of the chapter to let people know that you can overcome these situations, but you gotta want to seek out and reach out for help, right? So I watched my mom go through therapy for many, many years. Could you imagine seeing your kids smashed up on a bus, not having not having the ability to think and comprehend? You're going through your mental health status where you're you're in the psychiatry ward. I mean, you're going through some stuff. But over the period of time through prayer, there's a little bit of light at the end of that tunnel. And when you get to that light at the end of that tunnel and you pull up that shade and you got a bright sunny day, that's the time to get through. That's the time to get the help because you got to go through the storm, first of all. You know what I mean? And if you don't have a hand to hold, and I think the doctors and practitioners and everybody that was involved in her with her mental health status was the reason why she was able to get through the storm because it didn't happen overnight. It took her some years to get over that, for her to even look at her kid in the coffin. It took some time. And I was
Absolutely.
only 3 years old and he was 5. So it didn't happen for her overnight, but over the period of time, she gradually got better. She went back to work and she got her mental health back on track, where she was able to look in the mirror and see herself and envision some of the things that she went through throughout the process. So I'm a mama's boy. Raise my hand. I'm proud to be. But when I wrote this story, I was having those flashbacks and I was revisiting certain conversations and some of the things that she was telling me that really bothered her and how she didn't feel that she was going to overcome it. And we often talked about the time I was getting child abused. Never in my right mind could I ever imagine being a and B honor roll student coming home getting a whooping every day for doing something that you thought you was doing right. And that's keeping your education level to a point where you wanted to be somebody someday. And you had this person, that wasn't even your biological father, that sent you through so many different storms. I was at Hyde Park Elementary one day. He beat me so bad till my butt was shredded like snakeskin. It was so bad that I couldn't even sit down at my desk. I was in the 6th grade. That's why I'm able to remember it so well. I couldn't even sit down at my desk. So of course, we had guidance counselors and we had the principal, and they kept trying to make me sit down and make me sit down. So I was reluctant to sit down. So they took me to the office to try to paddle me, right? But then when they pulled my pants down to paddle me, the principal saw my butt. Back then they were whooping us like with those paddles, right?
Yep.
And I cut up so bad and I kept pointing at my butt. He pulled my pants down. He saw my butt. All he could do was shake his head because my underwear was so stuck to my butt through blood and infection. When you pulse, of course, and you got the infection, my underwear was stuck to my rear end. They took me straight to the hospital. Of course, the hospital reporters had to report the incident. They interrogated my mom. My mom spilled her guts and told him that, she wanted to leave, but he threatened to kill her, this, that, and that. But it was a whole different thing. But my mental health situation was kind of bad throughout the year, and I still think about that stuff right to this day. So right in the book, I have flashbacks about those incidents. So, and then I use that to empower other people from chapter 1 on through chapter 20. Excuse me. And it's not just because it can happen in the domestic violent relationship, but it can happen in everybody walks of life. Marriages, grievance over death. Depression can happen from your job because your boss might be the kind of person that always threatens to kill. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, with every chapter is something related to how you can turn the table, turn the tide.
Yeah.
Man,
So
that's
You can tell I like to
statistically,
talk, right?
That's powerful.
statistically, Dr. Jamison, I read it said that there was about more than 5 million men
Mm-hmm.
experience depression every year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we know
Mm-hmm.
that most African American men don't want to appear vulnerable, don't like to ask for help. What would
Yeah.
be a piece of advice that you would give for an African American man who was battling depression, but didn't know how to express that they needed help with that?
If I had a stage, I can reel them in for you. Because when they hear my story, just like when I talk to people here in LA, when they hear my story, then they kind of like coming out of their shell. I'm not macho anymore because I can really sense somebody that think they I can sense another man to determine whether they're abusive or whether they really going through some situation they need to discuss,
Mm-hmm.
whether they've been through situation that caused them to be who they are, whether they've been molested as a child abuse, or maybe they grew up in that environment. And I want to reach out to those people that think they could never be somebody. They always been down talked and say they ain't gonna never be anybody because of their behaviors, their mental health stability. There are grown men right to this day when I'm telling you this here. And when they come into the clinic and I do that assessment, we have this type kind of boy to boy talk. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I look at that, and then I look at that report. And when I look at that summary, and I was asking them, I mean, because in this field, you don't judge, you listen. You don't judge, you listen. You engage in conversation. You try to feel this person out. You never make a determination to tell someone about their mental health status. You often try to help them with what they're going through. And that's what we do based on that report. Because back in the day, most psychologists, they grab a pen, they ask you these 9 questions and stuff like this here and go to their own calculation. But how often can you take your car to a car shop and they put it on the rack for a diagnostic, and the diagnostic gonna come back wrong? What's the chances of that happening? Zero. So this is what we rely on. We rely on this person being honest to answer these questions to the best of their ability. Don't have to be spot on, but be spot close. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And when we get that summary back, they say, wow, I didn't know all this was going on. So, okay, what we want to do about it? Do we want to address these issues and get you better? Or do you want to keep going through this very same scenario? You're in and out of jail. You're back and forth to the crack house. You're back and forth to the corner. Do you want to get out of this environment? Do you want to help yourself? Because I can't change you. You got to want to change yourself. I can be that guy to hold your hand and walk you down the road and tell you what we need to do to get you better, but not be the one to basically break your arm because it ain't going to do no good. Twist your wrist, it ain't gonna do no good because you're not willing to, but you got to be willing to. So I like to preach to people when I'm gonna tell you, I don't give them 5 or 10 minutes when they come in. I like to give each client at least about 30, 45 minutes. And I want to give them the 30 minutes and I'll take the 15 or the 10. Because when I get through with the summary, I'm gonna tell them and advise them on the next step that they need to do. Because at Miss Jones, if your depression level is severe, I need to be trying to schedule you an appointment with Dr. Tunji. I'm just using the name. So that's how severe it is. If it's moderate, then maybe we can help you with some therapy. So Dr. Kalita is our practitioner in mental health. Refer on over, right down the hall, schedule that appointment, get you in as soon as we can. But if it's severe, we finna get you some help like ASAP. And if it's like late evening when we do that diagnostic and then you need that help, we want you to come back in the morning. If you ain't got no waiting, we're going to come back and pick you up. That's how you help address issues with people with mental health. You gotta be in the game with them. You can't leave them alone, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
And
like
you
to
have to.
explain to clients that it's a relationship.
Exactly.
In a relationship, both parties have things that they have to do. Like therapy is not magic, nor is medication. You know, there
Yeah.
are things you also have to do in order for it to work. So I totally understand that.
And see, I got the writing so big in this book. You see how big the writing? So they can't say I'm trying to hide nothing. You see how big this writing is? This is a 12 font. I want them to read this book, like literally. And then, in terms of the behavioral health thing, oh, shoot. Uh-oh, sorry. That's crazy.
You're
We
good.
still there. We still there. I know you can
Mm-hmm.
cut that out. I know you can edit it that.
We're
But,
live. We're live. So,
oh,
but
man.
that's what makes the show so good, because ain't nobody perfect. We're not on here.
So,
We know, we're not being
There you
perfect.
go. There you
so
go.
here's the behavioral health steps right here. It's in this. It's in the front of the book. Like literally, it tells you about our program, how we can address your trauma, your bipolar disorder, your anxiety, your depression, all your mental health. It starts right here on this page right here, and it tells you about the PHQ-9, the GAD-7, and how each modality helps you. And you see how big the writing is, so you can't say, "Well, Dr. Jamison is so small. I'm going to find you some readers." This is a 12 font. We're going to get it to 18. you know? So,
Is there an audible version?
no, the thing about the auto version, I mean, to transcribe it, it takes time. And reason why I did some research on it, and I couldn't be the one to dictate it because my voice is like everywhere. My Southern accent, you know what I mean? I ain't gonna make these words come out perfect.
Yeah.
So I didn't write this book with AI, and I don't want to do a transcription of my book unless somebody can read it and do the audio clearly where it can be authentic, not generated through AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather tell my story in front of an audience. And I'm gonna tell you how we do this thing. I do concerts. We have an opportunity. We just did one with Lakeside over here a few weeks ago with the with Centinela Hospital. One of the hospital that's in our group. So all the hospital, they're setting up hospital book tours for me to come on campus of the hospital, set up the table, bring out the radio station, and do big time promotion to get the crowd out and talk to people about this book and set up an appointment to do a bigger thing. You know what I mean? Maybe at an auditorium or something like that. You know what I mean? And do more of a larger crowd. But just to get the word out, the hospitals are giving me certain days to come out to the hospital. These are hospitals in our network. So keep in mind, most of our doctors and we work in hospital setting. We're not just clinic guys, you know, because they're primary care, they're internal medicine, they wound doctors. I'm a wound care doctor too, so believe it or not by trade, but by education. So I'm right now. I did my first hospital book signing at a Derby Park at a big picnic. And there were thousands and thousands of people there. So I do the behavioral health assessment, the PHQ-9 assessments on spot. And if there's some really urgent care that needs to be done, we get them in as soon as possible. I don't give my book to them right at the especially when I'm giving it to them free. I have to make sure that I do the assessment. They bring that assessment to the clinic, and they have to enroll into our program and seek the care. And then they can get the book for free, or they can pay me $20 and walk away with it the same day. And that's a good way to draw. That's a good way to sell a lot of the books too, though, because most people would say, well, you know, I'm gonna schedule my appointment to come in on Tuesday, and you give them the book, they don't show up on Tuesday. Guess what? I lose my book, right? Yeah, so, but I can talk all day. You can tell I can talk, right?
Man, I love to hear you talk because you were spitting that real that people need to hear, man. You're a real inspiration because you were able to take things that a lot of people would have let break them.
Yeah.
But then you turned it and did a whole 180 degrees turn with it and took it to a positive level and made it to like places. And I'm sure you've seen things and been places that people could only imagine, like who were from the same area as you.
Well, I can't give myself all the kudos. I have to, speak about people like Dr. Lewis too, because her journey, to get to where she is, it didn't happen overnight. I know the steps. I know what she had to go through. I know the bumps and the bruises. I know what she had to go through. I know the restless nights. I know the nervousness when you get ready to take these tests and things like that. I know what she went through, because I'm gonna tell you, when I was in surgery and as I continue working on my degrees, between every surgical procedure, I was going to the men's locker room, opening up my book, advancing my studies to accomplish my goals. And I wasn't taking no for an answer. I wasn't taking failure. I wasn't going to take a D. And what made it easier for me is because most of the things that was in my book that I was in my next study, I was seeing it every day in the operating room. How about that? I mean, like literally, like everything. Because I'm the bachelor in health science, the master in health science, and the PhD in health science. And then I was working with pathology at the same time. So everything that was in that book that I couldn't see or figure it out, somewhere down the line, it was going to be in that surgical procedure. And I'm going to say, oh, dang, there it is right there. You know what I mean? I mean, whether you're dealing with your brain, dealing with your heart, dealing with your lungs, dealing with your intestines, dealing with your back, dealing with your neck, even doing stuff. And I'm not a female, but like back then we were doing these paniculectomy for obese patients, where we was taking a lot of the people access fat away from the women that had babies and that's been obese. And they call them like, they trans flap is another procedure when someone has chemotherapy and they had a mastectomy. We got to take some of the fat, we got to do a tunnel, and we got to turn a flap and make a new breast. These are some things that we see in the operating room that was part of that. That was part of that journey that was in that book, and I just couldn't figure the stuff out until I saw it physically. Man, that was a game changer for me, because I was already in the field, had been in the field for over 10 years. And as I progressed along the way, the things that was in the book, it came natural. I never failed one test because of that.
What would you like for people to take away from the book when they finish the last page? When they walk away, what do you want them to be
Well,
thinking?
when they read that last page, one thing I want them to think about and to know is that I bought this book off Amazon, but Dr. Jameson's phone number is in that book. And when I called him, he was able to help me with my mental health. If I could just help one, that's my legacy. But Lord knows if I help two, I done did God's work. And so for them to read that last page and know that they're doing so much better because of my leadership and the things that I wrote in this book, which is a part of my journey and their journey, and we walk this journey together, dude, that's what I want to hear. That's why I put my number in the book.
That's powerful, man. That is powerful, man. And when it
Yeah.
came down to you, so you've written 3 books. And
Yeah.
I've always wanted to write at least one. What was the What was the motivation? And Dr. Lewis, you can answer this question too. How do I write a book? I mean, like, do you just sit down and just start one day, or do you research how to break it down into like subject and then the middle and then the end, and then like tell me how, if I want to write a book starting tomorrow, what's the first step, or how to do it, period.
Go ahead, Doc. Tell him. Tell him.
Well, for me, it was sitting down and completing an outline. What did I want to write about? Right. So I gathered all my ideas together, and sometimes you can be laying in the bed and God will give you a word. He'll give you an idea. He'll give you a subject. Write those things down. I always had a little notepad beside the bed. I've got one in my purse. So no matter where I am, I'm always jotting down things. And so when you actually get ready to sit down and perhaps do a chapter, you have all these things that you've written down. And so you compile them that way. That's how I did it. I actually wrote my first book based on my own lived experiences, because what's from the heart reaches the heart, and a tree is known by the fruit that it bears. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted somebody to feel like they could take another step or live another day. Because we go through things all the time, and sometimes life is just life, and you don't know what to do. So that's what I wanted to do when I wrote my book. What message do you want the world to receive?
That's
Is
true.
is there a
And what
certain
I
amount of
do,
pages? Are you aiming for a certain amount of pages, or are you just, how do you know when it's done, or do you say, is it long enough? Do I need to write
Oh yeah,
more?
you ask yourself all of those questions.
yeah,
You do, yeah.
I'm the kind of guy, I do dictation. She'll write it down, but I'll put it in my phone. I'm talking in my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I talk when I'm thinking on my phone. I close my eyes, I get into the vibe. Now I write a story, I talk it, and I talk a story through my phone. And then I go back and revisit the story that I was speaking and try to address a lot of the typos much as I can. But this is where your editor comes in at. I was always told to tell your story, write the story, whatever, but your editor have to go back in behind you and put it in the format that needs to be in and help you paint that picture a little brighter, you know what I mean? And put it into a storytelling situation. Because dictating it and just speaking your thoughts at that time is not really, to me, compiling a story as you will see on the big screen. And see, and I envision it like that because when I wrote my first book, I became a playwright and I started telling stories on the stage. Then I started writing screenplays. I started writing movies. And then I jumped up into a different game. I started writing journals. But like Dr. Lewis said, she writes it down. I dictate mine and compile it all together, send it to my editor when I think I got enough chapter. But then my goal is to always have at least 20 chapters, over 200 pages, because that gives your readers, I think it gives them the best for their money. Because my book is $20, and I want somebody to really, know that they spent $20 in good faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to give them a lot to gather in the thought. But she was spot on. Those are the steps and things like that. So
yeah, and for me, I wanted to target the people who don't necessarily like to read, but I wanted to, because my book is a short read.
okay,
Sometimes you can't. The attention span is not very long these days. So
no,
that's
they're not.
that I wanted to capture. Yeah.
Most nurses and most doctors who basically purchase my book, they'll read my story on a flight or on a trip or something. You know how they sit up late at night, can't sleep. You know what I mean? They come back and tell me, say, I couldn't sleep last night. I picked up your book, man. Your book is like dope. I mean, and it said, and for a practitioner or a psychologist to come back and tell you, said, what you wrote, Dr. James, it helped me. How'd that make you feel? I mean, for somebody in the same studies, to the same field, to say that I didn't even look at it like that, but the way you broke it down and you wrote it and how you told the story about it, because at the beginning of every chapter, I will tell you in this chapter, you're going to learn such and such and such and such, right? I mean,
Give my heads up.
Exactly. So they come back to work and they said, Dr. J, man, you got a bestseller, brother. And this is why they said the hospitals are important, because there's a lot of stressed out doctors and a lot of stressed out nurses, right? A lot of stressed out employees and staff members at the hospital, let alone the patients, right? I can't take money from a patient getting discharged from the hospital, right? Unless they're going to buy my book on discharge and take it home. But guess what? If they're going to roll into my primary care program before they get discharged, they're going to get this book when they get to the clinic.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But so when they set my tables up at the hospital, I told them I need to be like close in front of the door, because I'm bringing a radio station with me, and and I don't want to be inside because it'll make it uncomfortable to be inside too, as well as the radio station outside. The radio station can't come inside. You know what I mean? And then you want to be able to capture the traffic from the professional building that's going to the hospital, going to the cafeteria, all these components moving together. That's when you'll be able to sell a lot of books. So the hospital tour is going to be good for my book. And then when a lot of the doctors, when they read my bio on the back of the book, for the ones that don't know me, they have no other choice but to shake my hand and say, man, I'm proud of you, because let alone you have gave us some good information. And now that we read your book and your bio, we know exactly why you wrote this book, because you had a journey and you have paved the way for many other young doctors that's looking up to you these days.
We got a call, y'all. Yo, how's it going? You on the Mr.Jelks show with Dr. Jamison.
Message is delivered by Oak Hill Group. Our phone number is 838.
It's a telemarketer. What? Not
so
a telemarketer.
Dr. Lewis, what's the name of your book?
The name of my book is Love in All the Wrong Places.
Okay. All right. So have you had a book tour?
I have not. So I wrote that book maybe 12 years ago, and I actually only wrote it as a challenge for myself, just to see if I accomplish it. So I had another book in the making, but I've been so busy that I haven't had an opportunity to sit down and complete it. Wow.
Yeah, 12 years ago, I think I started writing my first book 12 years ago, The Turning Point. And The Turning Point is a book that basically geared toward inmates that has low-level felon offenses on their record, and how most people that do like longevity time. I had a nephew that really did some super long time. He robbed First Tennessee Bank back in the day. And so But you know, the thing is, most people that's incarcerated for a period of time, when they get out of jail, they always end up going back to jail. And it's because they don't have an opportunity to get a job, or they don't have a home to go to when they get discharged from the facility, and they end up getting caught up back in the system all over again. So something to motivate inmates, former inmates that has a low level, nothing hardcore, because if you got a low level felon offense, it's not the end of the world for you, because as long as you show some form of remorse for your crime, you know, a lot of people grow up and get caught up in the system at a early age, and that felon, you know, obstruct them from getting jobs opportunities. And people don't know they can go back to school and become a barber and still cut hair with that felon on it, you know, on their report. You know, some people can go into entrepreneurship, and you know, and they're not on that level of thinking because they feel like it's the end of the world. So now we got a 34 convicted felon president in the White House. Every felon should get a job, you know. So yeah, just writing. I just like to write now, and I'm grateful. I wrote my first play back here in 2015 called "I Survived the Storm," and the very same intro that I utilize in this book, I use as the intro of the manuscript of my book when I got child abuse and coming from the domestic violence family. So I let that kind of like grab everybody's attention that was sitting in the theater when we was on tour, because I had real actors that, I mean, like from Hollywood in these productions, right? And so, you know, it was like an easy ticket seller. And everywhere we toured throughout California, every event sold out. And in fact, you know, I was thinking about coming back with the sequel part of it now, since I've pretty much got more into writing and add more characters, you know, to broaden the spectrum of the story now. You know what I mean? Because I can add more pieces to it. And so, but that's why I am. I mean, the entertainment business has been good to me, as well as my career. The authorship has been dope, because I love to tell my story. And, you know, sometimes I'm generous enough just to give somebody a book, you know what I mean? Because they'll tell somebody else to buy the book. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
Yep.
but I'm
Exactly.
coming back home soon. My two psychologists that's in Memphis, you know, we about to crack up something going in Memphis soon, about to open up behavior health and primary care facility, which I already teamed up with. I just reestablished my license back in Tennessee. I'm back in the Baptist and Methodist and St. Francis network, not as an employee this time, but more of a provider. How about that?
We need it, man.
You know what I mean?
The city needs it,
And
man.
so
And we
I've been
need
talking to a
you and
lot of
people
people.
like you.
And so we just launched a new project a few weeks ago. One of the doctors that I used to work with just purchased some PIC line licenses for me to come back home and help him, you know, jumpstart his PIC line clinic over on Poplar Avenue somewhere. He said he's going to get the spot at, but I'm going to help him get that up and going because I got the expertise, of course, you know. But like I said, once again, I'm coming in as a provider, not an employee, you
God is
know,
good, man.
all the time, you know.
God is good.
And so, yeah, so he just bought the licenses for a few weeks ago, hadn't even launched it yet, but I'm taking some of the staff that I used to work with when I was in Memphis, and we're going to enroll them back into the program to help this provider, which he knows all of us anyway, you know. So that should be up and going within the next couple of months. So I'm excited.
That's amazing, man. I'm excited too, man. And hopefully we'll get a chance to meet in person whenever you come back to Memphis, man. That'll be awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely,
Teflon, I'm
man.
about to get with Teflon and see if he can arrange that, man, where we can
No,
meet.
well, you know, Teflon and I, when I come back, and it won't be long. It's not going to be a year or so. It's going to be a lot sooner than that. You know what I mean? But Teflon and we talk all the time. You know what I mean? In fact, you know, he was on the red carpet yesterday with that Breed Love film, him and Omar, and yeah. So the Omar Gooding guy, you know, he just did a big production with that. I'm going to eventually turn this book into a film. And I'm going to be working with another celebrity out here in California to help me with it. We've been speaking briefly, but it's going to be geared toward more of we're going to target a modality such as PTSD, because this book is also, I mean, you know, for the VA hospital, let me say this to you. We see a lot of veterans from the VA hospital And it's because we're in the hospital network, and I get referrals from the VA hospital like about 10 or 15 a week, like
Mm.
literally from veterans. You know what I mean? And see, our facility not only do we do doctors for their residency, at for the 6 weeks residency for primary care, but we also see a lot of veterans in our facility for the evaluation for the 100% and 90%, whatever percentage that they able to obtain. And so we have good relationship with the VA hospital out here too. And that's where the mental health aspect of it comes in.
Man, that's amazing. We're gonna have to have you back on. We got to have you back on definitely because we didn't even get into like the entertainment side of what I'm
Oh,
saying of
this was
your
important though.
journey.
The
Uh huh.
music.
This, yep, exactly because you know what I'm saying. Like just the artist, just being a doctor and then still following your passions. That's a whole nother segment on its own. You know what I'm saying? Because
Exactly.
some people would just say, I made it to this level. You know what I'm saying? I tried to do music, I tried to do other journeys, but they'll be satisfied because they've made it to a high level already. But to have a person with drive, you know what I'm saying, who you've already made it to a certain level. And I think Dr. Lewis and myself, we kind of have a little bit of that too. Like like you never too you never you never know too much. You're always
No.
seeking more knowledge and more
Absolutely.
adventures and more, like, you know what I'm saying, just more life, you know what I'm saying.
Dude, I'm blessed to be 64 years old, man. You know what I mean? And to start my journey such at an early age, I'm grateful for the opportunity. And I'm also grateful that I'm able to inspire other people that's just starting their journey. You know what I mean? Because not many people have the opportunity to be successful and then not brag about what they had to go through to get here, but not take it for granted at the same time and just be grateful. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I feel. I just feel blessed. And I want to be able to give back to people, if nothing but knowledge of how to get there. Not utilize my roadmap, but to establish their own. But the only way you're going to do that, you got to believe in the man upstairs, number one. And then you got to be hungry for it. You got to want it, because guess what? It ain't going to just drop in your lap. And every piece of education that I have earned, nobody gave it to me, and nobody can take it away from me.
Dr. Lewis, you got any last words for tonight's, any final thoughts for tonight's episode?
Just one little brief statement. The brain is the most powerful organ in the body, and so the greatest wealth is mental health. Take care of what you feed your mind, because it comes out through your words, through your actions, through your behaviors.
And I second that. She told it. She was spot on. She was spot on.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah,
Well, we could go all night, man, because the conversation is just getting doper and doper, man. Would
man.
you please come back for another segment or another
Man,
episode so we can
trust
dig
me,
more
brother.
deep into your story, because your story is like, it's super powerful.
I'll be glad to come back anytime, my friend. All I got to do is have that head up notice and let me know the date and time. We're chime right on in. I know you're on every Wednesday. So guess what? All you got to do is lock it in. Just come lock and loaded.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Once
Absolutely.
again, a recap, y'all, the new book, Alone, Turning Unseen Wounds of Depression into Wisdom by Dr. Robert L. Jamison. Is out now at Amazon. Go support the book. We appreciate you so much, brother, man. You a family member now. When you come on the Memphis Joke Show, you just join the family. So you can come to the barbecue.
There you go, brother.
And all that good stuff, man. But
And
we'll be in
also,
touch.
okay, be in touch. But also, if they want to sign an autographed copy of the book, they can call me at 213-258-5112. And I guarantee you it's going to be a read that they don't ever want to miss out on.
And there it is. Much love, man. Thanks to all the viewers for watching, man. Thanks for the telemarketer who called in. And we out. Till next week. Peace and love.
Squad up, haters down, haters down. If you ain't about that life, don't come around, don't come around. Got the crowd, gone wild, gone wild. Tell me what you know about that MIM style, that MIM style.